Maybe by now you can see that we're getting closer to being done. What I have is a lot of little stuff left and the beard. I haven't done a whole lot with the beard. I haven't done any nostrils here. I may put a pencil in a few there. And then I've got a lot of cleanup details to do. So we're going to spend a little bit of time today doing that. I'm not going to really make this in a long video. Like I say, we're real close to being done in terms of putting in all the gross anatomy, all the big details, and all the things we need to make sure we have our carving quote-unquote finished. I'm going to go back to the bottom because I still have a lot of that chew-up stuff. So there's a lot of that stuff left over from when it was put on the duplicating machine. So I'm going to go back to the same tool that I was using earlier. I've got a big OCC gouge here. I don't know that they're still making them. I'm pretty sure they're not, but we're going to use that one. I'm a little crooked here. Let me see if I can't straighten that up just a bit. There we go. There we go. There we go. Okay, so again, I'm going back to this bottle of rubbing alcohol and water. It is 50-50. I'm sure the proportions are close to being right. I mean, it could be 49-51, but it could be 60-40 for all I know. Anyway, we're gonna spray it with this liquid, and I don't need a lot in there. I don't want to soak it, but I want it to be enough of it to raise the grain. So all I'm doing, I did one side the other day for you when we were talking about this. I'm going to go back and clean all this up because this chew up mark goes all the way out to the edge, and so that means that I'm going to have a little bit of overlap, a little bit of water on the outside. But anyway, all I'm going to do is just come in here. Let's see if I can do this and it's not so awkward. And I just do this with my, come on back here, come on back here, come on back here. And I'm just going to get in there and take it off with this. So now that you know what I'm going to do, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the camera doing this. You just go in there. I've got a big gouge. It's a number 11. I will say, nope, it's number 7. My apologies. It's a number 7. It's Dubai, or OCCT, which has now been bought out by KCT. And I'm just going to remove all that. So we'll leave that for you to do on your own time. You don't necessarily need to watch me doing that. I did make a little mark right here, and I hope you can see that. And that's my mark to stay right in the middle of that page. Right in the middle of that screen, that scene, in the middle of that spot right there. Anyway, I'm going to take a fishtail gouge, and this is one of my oldest tools. I really like it. It's a Drake, and I've been using it for a long time. I'm going to go, and I'm going to start right here at the bottom of the beard, and I'm just going to go around, and I'm going to clean up. Again, I don't want to sit here and bore you to death on a video watching me do a lot of cleanup, because it's kind of futzy, as my friend Steve calls it. You're just sitting here and you're being futzy about what you're taking off in terms of, do I really need to make that clean, or am I going to come back and carve it anyway again to add in more details or take details away? So you have to answer that question about yourself and about what you're doing with this carving. If I'm going to I took all the saw marks off here. If I was going to come back here and do a lot like a pocket or more robes or something like that, I might have decided not to do all that work on the robe and on taking off all those saw marks. But you know, it's never a bad thing to clean it up. So that's what I'm trying to do now. So I'm going to spend a few minutes doing that, and then we'll finish up the beard, and then I want to paint today. I want to get this one off the paint table. I'm getting ready for some classes, and I'm planning some Zoom classes for those of you that would be interested in that. So drop me a line in the comments if that's something you'd like to do. I'm certainly no expert at chip carving, but I'm gonna do some, and I'm gonna do some because I'm teaching a class here in Boise. The woodcraft classes asked me if I'd teach a class on chip carving, and so I've got to break out my chip carving tools and brush up on my skills because I've done it before. I just haven't done much of it, so I want to make sure that before I teach a class, I at least know what I'm talking about. I may not be expert in doing it, but at least when I teach you something, I can teach from a position of knowledge. And I don't want to be teaching while I'm learning at the same time. I want to be able to look at you and show you what I'm doing and explain why I'm doing what I'm doing. So again, just a matter of being ready for my students when they show up. I want to be able to help them get there without having to watch me fumble around and figure it out. I don't know everything about carving. I'll never claim that I do, and I'll never claim that I'm the best carver you'll ever see. I like to think I'm pretty good, and I like to think I do a good job of imparting that knowledge to you. If not, you know, there's other people out there you can watch, but I'm not saying I'm the best teacher. I know that I'm pretty good, and I've had a lot of feedback on that, and I'm thankful for that feedback. It helps me become even better. But I want to make sure that I'm showing you what I'm doing and why I'm doing what I'm doing. So we're going to leave these as mittens rather than individual finger pieces. I don't want to necessarily worry about that too much. I want to get to the details. And so just going around here and just seeing where the most egregious, the largest detail faux pas or things that need to be cleaned up, like right in this robe right here in this corner. Seems that no matter what I do, it wants to chew up, but we'll get her figured out here in a little bit. Okay. Looking around here, I think we're in good shape. I know there's a lot of little corners we could trim up, like that one right there, to show a separation between the arm, the body, and the beard right in there. Get down in there with my pointed knife so I can undercut it and make it look like the shadows under there. Look at this corner right here, and the hair is real straight right in here, but we want to clean that up and tool that a little bit more. Get back into this corner one more time. It keeps wanting to split out on me when I get in there, so I'm just going to have to get in here and show it who's boss. Because you know who that is. It's my video. It's my boss. I'm the boss. Alright, I'm going to take out my little little V-tool. Not a very big one. This is Ramelson right there. So what I'm going to do is go in here where the hair is and try to make some randomness to this. I don't want them all to be the same way, going the same way, all the same length. I want to just pick out a few things in here that we'll clean up later. I can come in with an angle. I can come in at a steeper angle and make it gouge out some more wood. But I just want to take off that ridge of what looks like what happens when you go to the salon. Never been to a salon to get my hair done, so I don't know. But I know for most ladies it comes out and they're usually pleased with it, although I've seen a few of them that aren't pleased. But anyway, I'm just getting back up under here and making a shadow back there. So what's useful about these fishtail gouges, they're thin enough, skinny enough that they can get back in there. And you know what, and you know where I'm going, so I'm not going to sit here and piddle, play, and putter with that. Let's finish up this beard. I'm going to go get another V-tool. Dig them out of my box over here. And I want to get another one of my stew-by gouges. I've added a little bit of tooling to it. I've not finished it, certainly, but I've added a little bit to that face. And so I want to go back in here with a shallower gouge. I can't seem to find it until it's the last one I grab. So I've made some big broad strokes in here, some of them going this way, some of them going that way. I'll make a few more right in here right under the mustache. I want to be careful not to crash into that mustache because it, as we saw in an earlier video, it's kind of wants to flake off on me. And so I'm just going to make a few marks through here, just give it some texture, give it some shape and some movement if I can. Sometimes you can't. Most times you can. See that right in there? All that little movement we got. I want to get rid of that ridge right there. So I just come from the opposite side and I'm just going to pick down. And all that's doing is taking that down. Make sure your cuts are more random rather than 1 or 2 or 3 long straight ones. Get rid of that ridge there. And then we're going to come down here, get rid of this ridge over here. And then we're going to kind of turn a few of these cuts. In other words, curl them. See how I'm doing that curling part? You could come back in here and add all kinds of little swirls. I don't like to do that much unless it really calls for it. But I just added a little bit of lines, and I'm going to come back in here with the V tool and accent some of those lines. So I don't need much, but I'm going to make some smaller hair. Most of us have hair that flows in a lot of different directions depending on how the wind's blowing in your house or your neighborhood. But since COVID, I have really been slacking at the barbershop. I don't go very often. I probably should go more, but you know, at some point you just go, I'll get it another day. And that other day comes and you don't get it. It's alright, it's just hair. So I'm just doing a bunch of random little strokes here, some longer, some more random, just trying to make this beard look like it's flowing rather than just static. I don't want it to look like he was. You may have seen some of those pictures or paintings of early American history where the men always wore these powdered, made up wigs. I don't want him to look like that's what his beard is. It's made up and powdered and stuck in place. I want to make it look like it's just hair that's flowing, moving around. So little strokes, medium strokes, big strokes. Do them all to make it look a little bit more realistic. Realizing again, this is just a caricature, and so the way I'm carving him is it's in the caricature style. His head's a little bigger, eyes are a little wider, or in this case they're smaller. And so how you decide to do your caricature is up to you. You can lean him more towards the cartoonish side, or you can just make him just like you want. I'm going to clean up right up under that mustache. Be careful not to crush it, not to break it off or whatever. And then I'm going to flatten it just a little bit. I'm going to take a fishtail gouge and I'm just going to shave a little bit because it's not as clean as I want. I'm going to flatten it out just a little bit. I don't want it flowing way off the side of his head. But I do want to get up in there. And I'm going to get a smaller V tool. This real pointed one that gets in there. Just to get in there and clean up those little ones that I think my Ramison needs sharpening, but anyway. Take a little brush and clean up a little bit. See if it doesn't come off with the brush, then we got to go back in and clean it up. Okay. See one little mark right there. It's got a little chip out of that mustache, and one little mark right here we're going to clean up. So just take the tip of that knife and be careful how I get in there. Be careful how I get out too. And then clean up that corner right there. And then clean up that one right there under his nose. I said earlier we were going to do nostrils. I don't know. What do you think? Does he need it? Not sure he does. We'll carve a little bit more and we'll leave it later and maybe we'll take care of that. Okay. Now I want to come back here at the bottom of the beard and decide what I want to do. Take that Stu by V tool again, and I'm going to do the same thing I did back in the hair, back with the hair. And actually, I'm going to grab a wider one, maybe Drake one here. I don't know what the angle on that is. Probably 75. I don't know if you can see that very well. It's probably about a 75 angle. You can if I put it in the camera. About a 75, maybe, I don't know, 4, 5, 6, 8 millimeters, 10 millimeters. I'm going to go in here, and this will give me a wider, bigger kind of cut right there at the bottom of that beard. All I'm doing is digging it out so it looks like it's got, when I come back and undercut it, it'll have some shadow. That leaves these little boogers hanging out there that we got to clean up, but those are easily done. Come back in here, and anywhere I've got a little left over, come in here and pick those out. There's one right there, one right next to it, and you can certainly piddle, play, and putter this thing to death and be here till next Friday. Today is Friday. Or you can just get in there and get it done, call them out, they look pretty good. Clean it up a little bit with whatever cleanup tool you use, whether you use sandpaper, Scotch-Brite, or Abranet. Whatever you use to clean that up, it's entirely up to you, but we got cleanup to do. And let's tool that mustache a little bit. I need a little gouge, a small gouge, not a very wide one. Got a little flex cut here. Like I said earlier in a video, and probably in this one, I don't swear by only one type of tool. I use a lot of tools, and I'm not going to tell you any of them's bad or any of them's good, although there are a couple that I don't use anymore. If you watch my videos, you probably know what they are because they never show up. I use what I use, and I'm not one to tell you you have to use this one. I might tell you a particular size, but not a particular brand, because I think all of these tool manufacturers are doing a pretty good job, and they deserve our support, and they don't deserve my criticism, well meaning that it might be. They don't need that, so I'm not gonna be critical of what they do. Okay, add a few little marks on there as flowing beard and mustache. The sharper your blade is, the better it is here, because if it's not, you're going to end up with a lot of stuff that needs to be cleaned up. And at some point you go, all I'm doing is cleaning up. I'm tired of cleaning up. When can I get done and move on to the next piece of the carving, or move on to the next carving or project? So I'm going to try to finish this up here in the next little few minutes. And then we're going to, a little bit flat on that one. Let's make those curl a little bit more. There we go. There we go. Now we come back with an even smaller V tool, and I'm just going to pick some endings to that mustache. In other words, make it look like it's not glued together. It's got little hair marks in there as well. Not many. I don't need a whole lot to show what I'm trying to show, but I need a few in there. And always flow with the mustache. If the mustache is going that way, I don't want to go that way with those hair pieces. I want to just come back in here, and at the end where they curl up, create a few little spots. Take your brush, clean them up. I noticed yesterday that I had a stray mark over in this eye, and so I went this morning while I had a few minutes, I cleaned it up a little bit. Yeah, hopefully you can tell what that is and you can see where it's at. I'm going to go back down to the bottom of this beard now and make a few smaller marks right in between. See that part right there? Right in there, I like to make a few more marks to underscore the hair. I don't like it ending in a flat piece. I like to end it with some kind of shape to it at the end. So right here's another couple flat pieces right there. I want to be able to come back and put just a few stray hair marks in there. Curl a couple of those if you want to. Bring them out and curl them down and away and up and away, and just add a few little stray marks to that hair to give it a little more realistic look. Again, I used the big wide V tool, then I used a medium, and now I'm coming back in with a smaller one. You use whatever you feel like you need to. I'm going further back into the beard and just adding some marks. So right here, we got a couple right in there we could add in. Gonna be careful about that mustache, but a few blank spots in there that looks like they could use a little trim with my trimming tool here. Okay, you know what? I really like this guy. I am going to end this segment, and I'm going to go out into the garage and clean it up. That's where I do the sanding and things like that out there. Oh, and get a couple here. I'm going to go clean that up. I'll show you what this looks like. And it's got some areas that I could still sit here and clean up, but what I want to do is I want to take my finishing system. I have a mandrel that has some Scotch-Brite on it, which I buy for relatively inexpensive. And I don't know how many people use Scotch-Brites on their carvings when they're done, but I like doing it because unlike sandpaper, it doesn't give me a lot of dust in there, and it doesn't really chew up the wood. My two big questions about using sandpaper for any reason, at least in terms of my carving, is where do I start? In other words, what grit am I starting with? 60, 100, 200? I don't know. It depends on whether I'm on the front or the back or the underside. And where do I stop? Because you can certainly go up. I think I was at the Woodcraft last night, and I think I saw 12,000 sandpaper. Holy smokes, that would give you a mirror finish. But it doesn't take much off at any time, and so you're there for quite a while. And so when I'm using sandpaper, there's a specific reason why I'm using sandpaper, and it's usually not for cleaning up my carving. I don't like to sand down. I know from past experience that when you start sanding, it roughs up the wood, and so you start with a 60. I think that's the lowest I've seen. It's really, really aggressive, so there will be scratch marks all in here. You get up to 2,000, it might start taking them all away, but you're still going to have striations and marks and lines in there. And so for me, I don't like those lines in there. I like them clean cut, because that way it takes the paint the way I want, or the stain, whatever I may be doing. And so I use what's called a mandrel. A mandrel is a tool about this long, maybe 3 inches, I want to say. Something like that. No, yep, about two inches long. It's got a screw on the top. I take the screw off, and I put a couple of pieces of the square cut pieces of Scotch-Brite, and I put that in a small Dremel or rotary tool, and I spin it to where I can clean all this up. And what then doesn't clean up with that, then I can come back in here with, if I need to with sandpaper, I can come back in here with a knife, because there's little spots like this. And it just depends on, what look are you looking for? Are you looking for highly polished and glossy so that somebody thinks it's made in China? I don't, and I don't think my customers do, because the few times I've done those like that where they're really highly glossy, I still have them because nobody wanted them. And so I'm going to, in this segment, graft it onto the next one, and we'll continue on, because once we finish, I'm going to finish that bottom, and then we're going to paint. So take a good look at him here. This is my Santa. The red and gold Santa by Moore Roughouts. I'll show you the before and the after. Here's the before. And I'm going to end the video, and then we'll do the after. think it's time to paint. Took some time to go clean, and I call it whizzer wheel. Scotch Brite my carving. Hopefully you can see that it's a little bit cleaner. I could sit here and piddle, play, and putter with the whole thing all the time because you see a little bit of mark here, a little bit of mark there. But if you're a production carver, you don't have time to sit here and play with it. You call it okay, because this is going to be wet anyway, to a good extent, and so the wet swells some of the fibers back up. So all these little, you got a little nick there, whatever, all that'll fill up. If you watch me paint before, you know how I do it. I have my palette sitting here, and I'm constantly going back and forth. You know that some time ago I switched over from boiled linseed oil to refined linseed oil. So this is by a company called Gamblin, and we get it from the local art store. And I like it because it raises the grain, and I like the color underneath whatever I'm going to paint the face. So I use a stiff bristle brush to paint the skin part, the nose, the hair around the face. You notice I didn't put any nostrils in this guy. I didn't feel like it needed it, so we may regret that later, but I think right now we're okay. People say oil and water don't mix, but I know a lot of painters carvers who do that. I was watching a guy named Jerry Yarnell from the School of Fine Art. He's got a PBS channel that he paints, and he's doing that. He puts linseed oil on his canvas, and then he mixes it with water. So I like a little bit of this linseed oil. It goes a long way. This was I think it was $8 or $9 a bottle for 4.2 fluid ounces, and there's still a lot of it in here. I'll probably be using it for another year, but I have another bottle of it over here. You have to decide where you want to start painting. You want to start painting the base, you want to start painting the arms, you want to start painting the body, whatever. I kind of bounce around when I carve, and I don't know that I have one particular way of doing it. Feel free to wear gloves if you want to. These are acrylic paints. I usually use the Americana Deco Art because they're a little more, seems like they're a little more higher end than some of the others, but you can certainly use whatever you want. I'm not here to tell you what paint to use. I'll tell you what I use, and if you want to use that, that's great, but I'm going to start by painting the base, and then I'll add a little bit of I'm using desert sand, and then for the mittens or the gloves, I'm going to add a little bit of raw sienna to that to give it the color that I want. But let's get this one first. I want to paint the base, so I have a good place to start. Brushes are, we all have our own preference on brushes, and I just use what I got, and when it gets old and worn out like that, I turn it into a mixer brush. Okay, I'm going to go around here. Now, one of the things that I've done in the past is use these sticks. When I say sticks, I'm talking about a paint stick. If you've ever tired of getting paint all over yourself, one of the things you might want to do is create yourself a stick. I've got a commercial one, and I've got some that I've made. Basically, it's a screw with the head cut off. I can't get them out of these doggone bag. Come on now. Anyway, they make commercial ones like this, where it's metal with a small screw at the end. And I've got several of them that I use. When I'm carving bigger things, I like to have that because it's easier to hold. It screws into the bottom, and that seems like a good thing to do when you've got the mark of a rough out anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and say I'm going to, and then it falls out of my hand. Alright, so I'm going to just put that in the bottom of that, sink it up there, and that gives me something to hang on to when I'm carving certain points. But again, it's kind of awkward to hold on to that, and so when you're carving one way it works great. When you're carving another way it doesn't work good because it doesn't line up with what you're trying to do. That's my mixing brush, so I'm going to come back here to my painting brush. And all I'm doing is just making sure that the base as an even coat of color. I can always come back and add more color if it doesn't look like it's going to match up. But I want to carve all the way over to that fur, because the fur is going to be this color mixed with a little of that raw sienna. I use raw sienna for a number of things. It's a good undercoating. It's a good base color. It does good if you're doing a leather vest on a cowboy, chaps, whatever you want to do. Painting is one of those things where it is, everybody has their own way. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you you have to paint this way. You have to paint your way. Nothing else matters but your way. This is your carving, your painting. And if you don't like it, the good thing about it is it's acrylic. You can paint over it. You can go back in there and you can paint it again. Okay, I want to now mix a little bit of that raw sienna, and this is an eyeball thing. I'm going to put a little bit in, mix it, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to continue doing that until I get the color I want. You never really know because I've got water and I've got paint in there. And now I got a little bit more of another paint. I didn't put much in there, probably maybe 5 drops. But I got it all over the place. Go back to my mixing brush. I'm going to mix that up a little bit. I want it to be a browner color than what I've got on the base. And if you can see that, that's not enough. I need a little bit more in there. So I'll go back for another splash of it. This paint is relatively inexpensive, which is one of the reasons I like using it. I tried switching over to some Sonja paint and going just by the color. It says opal or beige or whatever it is, and then I find out when I get it home and mix it, it's got some different colors mixed in there. And so I'm finding out that without a lot of practice, I'm not going to be able to just switch over from beige in Americana to beige in Sonja. I'm going to put a little color right here, see how close that is to the paint there. I want it a little bit more. I want a little richer color in there. So I'm going to add even a little bit more of this raw sienna. Don't worry about using too much paint. Paint is really, really cheap. I mean, these things, you buy them on sale, and they're, 99 cents. You buy them full price, they're $1.69. So you're not financing somebody's yacht by buying these things. So anyway, I'm just going to take that and I'm going to try it down here at the bottom. And I like that brown color. Okay, so whatever color we want to call that. I'm using a flat 4 oil. I like the soft grip ones. They're kind of easy to use. But the flat gives me some straight lines when I'm painting, and so I'm able to do that. Now I'm going to run through this and not take a really long time doing this because I grew up in Tennessee, and I can tell you, nothing more boring than watching corn grow unless you're watching somebody paint a big surface, because they've got, it's going to take a while to get this done. And as much as I can talk, after years of being a teacher, sometimes you just got to keep the dialogue flowing. I don't think you want me to sit here the whole time talking about painting, but we'll try to do that. One of these days I'm going to take the time to learn how to use the photographic movie making program that I use, so that I can just edit out trim out, splice, whatever, a lot of the things, or speed it up, make this thing go faster so that you watch me paint at 3 times the speed, so you get an idea of what I'm doing, but you don't have to listen or watch that whole thing. Anyway, I'd tell you jokes, but they told me at the carving meeting the other night that I wasn't good at telling jokes. I'm better at telling stories, but we got a lot of carvers in our club that they really enjoy the dad jokes, so we end up hearing them all evening. So I don't know how we get it back on the point of painting and carving and whatever, but dad jokes are okay as long as the person telling them brings donuts, then it's okay. You'll forgive them as long as they come in the door with fresh made donuts. I can do that. I can go with that. My fat belly didn't need any more donuts, but you know, every once in a while, you got to splurge. So I'm gonna go around here real quick and make sure along the edges I didn't miss any spots that I need to go over. I'm gonna come over here with a red on this right here. And so even if I splash paint in a place I don't want it, the red will primarily cover it up. And I don't have to worry about trying to come back and re-clean or whatever. I can paint right over it. Good thing about the acrylics is they dry fairly fast, but on wood, if you make a mistake, you can come back with another little spot right there. You can come back with your brush and sometimes scribble out a color you don't want. So a little stiff bristle brush, get it wet, put water on the place where you put paint you don't want, and see if you can't scrub it out. Sometimes you can. Sometimes it doesn't take that much to do that. Okay, we've got the fur here, and I will have to decide what I'm going to do with the gloves. I'm going to do the hat right now while I think about that, because I think I want, well, no, I gotta follow that same color. So let's put that paint where it belongs. As Chris Hammock will tell you, put black where black belongs and red where red belongs. And sounds simple, doesn't it? Put the paint where it belongs. Don't splash it across everything you're doing. Put it where it belongs. Getting the color I want out of there. I'll give some thought to what color we want to color his mittens. I'm going to confess to you, I'm having a rough day today, and I'm going to bare my soul here a little bit. I hope that's not too much for some people. But just watching the news, and I just about hate watching the news anymore, but because there's so much rancor and angst. But watching what's going on in Maine, where a guy killed 18 people and wounded 13 more. And then you flip away from that, and you end up getting over towards the Israeli-Hamas war. And it just breaks your heart to think that there are innocent people on all these situations that are getting hurt, killed, dying, whatever. For what? For what? More land? Okay, I always promise you I'm not going to get political, so I just wanted to bare my soul. I made a mistake right here. You got a little paint right there I don't want. I told you I was going to paint over it, but let's see what happens when I put water on it and scrub it out. Okay, it's going to leave a residue behind it. When I go in here and dry it off, by the time I paint that, you won't know the difference. You'll never have known if you didn't watch the video. You'll never have known there was something there. Got a little spot right here. And a little spot right there. Okay. Now, well, I'm impatient. Before I was a carver, I was a painter, and I painted watercolor and acrylics, and I really enjoy doing that. What I like doing on this, because I'm trying to get ready for a show or trying to do it for a class or whatever, is I use a hair dryer. This one's retractable, so I can reach up under here and find the cord, find the power strip, plug it in. I use the hair dryer because I want to be able to paint around that, and I don't want to wait an hour or 10 minutes or even 20 minutes, 5 minutes for it to dry. So I'm going to make a little bit of noise with my hair dryer. Turn the sound down if you want to on 3, 2, 1. The advantage of doing the hair dryer is it allows you to go through and look when it's dry, because when it's wet it reflects, and so it looks like it's got the brown on there. And then when you dry it, the water goes away, and you see these little spots like this where you got to go back and touch it up. There were some on the head that I couldn't see, and as I go around here I can touch up and see spots where I didn't get enough paint or didn't get any paint. And it allows me to take care of it, because my wife has the eyes of an eagle. And when I go to show her when I'm done, she goes, well, you got a holiday here and a holiday there. Pretty soon I'm going, well, dang, how come I didn't see it? She did. She's better at it than I am, I guess. Anyway, I like to go back and touch up the little spots where I didn't get color in there, especially in between spots. Sorry, I'm way off the camera. Anyway, it allows me to go through and just pick out the spots that need it, and then I can hit it with a dryer here in just a minute. Alright, we talked about wanting to make that a little bit darker. I want to make it more of a chocolate brown, so I'm going to take a little bit of this, not soft black, I want a little bit of this burnt traditional umber. So I'm going to drop a few traditional burnt, oh nope, I'm sorry, I grabbed the wrong one. This is bittersweet chocolate, which is about the color I'm looking for, the blend of those two. And so I'm not going to paint much, so I don't need a lot of paint. So what I'm going to do is dip in here and move a little bit over here, and that'll allow me to control a little better how much paint I'm putting in there, because putting a little bit of paint in the big well with all that paint means it's going to be a while before I get to where I need to go. And I'm going to have to mix a lot. So rinse my brush, come back here. Ooh, that's a pretty color. I like that one. So we're going to add a few drops of water to it to let it flow. And I'm going to mix it one more time. And I think it's pretty thick, so I'm going to add a little bit more water. I don't want this to be cakey thick. I want it to be nice and rich color. Let's make sure, let's put it next to that color we got. Oop. Gotta mix it up. See the difference between those two colors? Can you see that on the paper? I like it. Let's double check. Put a little bit on there. I like that. That'll work. Whoop. That worked better than some of these other things I've done before. Still using that same brush. It's like when you're carving. If you're carving and you got a great big knife in your hand, don't put it down until you're done with it. In other words, if you're switching tools all the time, you're losing time. You're losing flow. You're losing continuity. And so the same thing with a brush. If I'm constantly switching to a big brush and a script liner and a round brush, eventually I'm going to lose time. I'm going to lose flow, continuity, whatever you want to call it. I'm losing what I really want to do, which is paint. I'm here to paint. I want to paint. So if I don't, then you know I'm taking longer than I really want to. I like to carve and I love to paint. But when I'm done with the carving, I'm done. I'm ready to move on. I see what I've done, and I see what I've learned, and I see what I've turned out. and I'm ready to move on to the next project so I can gain more skills and have more fun. I like doing cowboys and Santas and gnomes and characters, and I want to move on to the next one. And so maybe I'm impatient, I guess, that way, but I want to have fun, and I guess what I'm saying, part of it is I want to finish this carving, painting, and whatever on one particular project before I lose interest. So being ADHD and being impatient and whatever else you want to call me, I like to be able to move on and still have an enthusiasm for what I just did. Still enjoy it rather than kind of being impatient there. While we wait on that to dry a little bit, I'm going to put in a little bit of base flesh for the face. I don't need a whole lot. I've only got that little bit of the face there, so not much. Bear with me while I zoom in just a little bit. I realize I'm away from where I want to be. Let's get a little closer, maybe you can see what I'm doing. A little bit of base flesh. I'm going to mix that really well because I want it to flow and I don't want it to be thick. So it looks real pale, which is okay. I'm going to add more to it. It's basically an underpainting of the face. And then I'm going to come in here with deep blush, which I don't think you can get anymore. It's aggravating me to death with these paint manufacturers who have a color for 2 or 3 years and then they get rid of it. And they tell you what you need, what colors they already have that you need to mix to make that. And I just go, why don't you just leave it alone? This is one of those. I can't get deep blush anymore. You find it on eBay, now it's like $12 a bottle for, 4 ounces. And I was doing that the other day. I was trying to find Deco Art Americana paint with this denim blue. It's the one, or not denim blue, uniform blue. It's what I use for my cowboy blue jeans. Can't find it. I went to 4 stores, Hobby Lobby, Quality Art, Michael's, Joann's, and they were out of that paint. Come to find out, they quit making it. So now you got to try to figure out, what am I going to do? Do I switch brands, whatever? I don't know. Okay, what I want to do between these two, I like this color for undercoating, so I'm going to add a little bit to here, and I'm going to add a little bit of that back over here. It makes these colors close. They're closer than they were. And so I'm going to come in here, and I want to water it down because I can add more washes and add more layers. So I'm going to add a little bit more water here, a little bit there. Come in with my brush. Got to do the paintbrush in instead of the flat end. And I'm just going to put that over there. It's going to mix with that refined linseed oil and give me a nice base, kind of a fleshy color. Not real orange, not real pink, not real red, but just a little bit of color to it. I don't know if you can see all that. I'm trying to get down into the crevices. Now, I watered this down. I'm going to water it down even more. I'm going to pull a little bit out of here, and then I'm going to try to get that down into the washes where I want it because I want that color in there. I'm not blanket covering this. I'm going over and sliding around. Still not a lot of color there to it because I don't want a lot of color on it. Now what I'm going to do is give it a highlight color. Here's my Santa red, and I don't know if that's the right red, but we can water it down enough. Get a little bit on that brush, a little bit in there. And that's a whole lot more color than I really want. Not sure if you can see that, but I'm going to dip in the water once, twice, give me a little bit of water, and I'll let that flow out. And then flow out here and it gets lighter and lighter. It's a watercolor technique. You flow it out here, it gets lighter and lighter. I'm going to use the lightest that I can because I can always come back with more, and there's not enough color in there to do much. And so I can come back. It's there. I can come back and go further up the color tree that I created. Oh, now that's what we want. See that red a little bit more in there. So it still isn't exactly the full color I want because I want a Santa color in there. So I'm going to take it and push it back into the crevices back up here where your flesh is pinker. Somewhere around the nose, back around the eyes where you got all those wrinkles. Ever looked at people and stare at their faces? They probably think you're weird. Just tell them you're a painter and you're getting a picture in your mind. And they might be flattered that you're going to paint them as long as you tell them you're going to paint them in their best look. So that's where I'm at. That's what I wanted. By the time I put the sealer over top of that, it's going to look great. All right. We are going to paint the robe. I want this paint mixed up. I want it really mixed up. A lot of times this stuff gets in the bottom and it's hard to get it out of the bottom. So you turn it upside down, give it a few love taps, and you get the color all mixed up that you want. Okay? We're going to water that down quite a bit. I water my paints down a lot because I don't want them going on there real stark. They're going to be on there anyway. I want to work up to the shade that I'm looking for. I don't want it to come right out of the bottle like that. Because I can still paint a little bit, add a little color, paint a bit, add a color, highlight, add some dry brush, whatever I need to do. Okay, I'm going to switch to a bigger brush because now I'm covering a large area. I'm covering this coat. And so I want to make sure that I'm doing that in a timely fashion. I don't want to spend 30 minutes painting a coat. So I go in, get a paint, daub it off. Does that look about right? That looks like a Santa coat, doesn't it? Okay, here we go. Getting bold here. The good thing is most of these surfaces run up against each other and they're the same color. And so right here on the arms, I can continue painting over that arm because it's the same color as the coat next to it. What you don't want is a lot of hard lines here. So when you put paint, wet paint, on a dry surface, you get a hard line like that. If you left it there and came back and painted later, sometimes it's hard to get that line out. You still see it in there. So keep your brush moving all the time. Don't stop on it. Don't let it stop. Use the flat brush and the corner of the flat brush because I can get into the corners of places and really get to it. I enjoyed this is a Pat Moore creation. On the paper it says designed by John Susin, S-U-S-I-N, carved by Pat Moore. I really enjoy these Santas that she does. So taking her class, you learn a lot of different techniques that you may or may not use, you may or may not heard of, whatever. I'm not going to share any of her secrets. I'm not telling you which ones are mine and which ones are hers. You should take a class from her. And you will learn so much about painting and about carving. She's got some great training in her background, art background, that you will learn a whole lot, especially if you're brand new or fairly new to carving. She can show you a lot of ways to get where you need to go, and particularly with regard to things like shading and different techniques and things like that. I like what she taught me in July when I went up there to Ellensburg to the Northwest Carving Academy. I had a great time, learned a whole lot. I'm not going to tell you what that is. I just splashed over into an area I don't want to splash over. So I'm going to get it wet and I come back and dab it out of there. And we're back. So I'm not going to give away her secrets. That's not fair. You take her class, you'll learn all those secrets that she can teach you in a day or 2 or 5 or whatever it is. But I'm teaching you to paint my way. Some of that is adding what I've learned from carvers like Cleve Taylor, Gene Fuller, Marv Kaisersad, and others. Every one of us are an amalgamation, is that a word? A collection of the things that we've learned from a bunch of different people, because there are people that I learned I went to John C. Campbell years ago and took a class from Harley Repsol, and the way he paints is to take it and dunk it in a jar of linseed oil and leave it overnight. Well, I've found personally when I do that, my carving ends up darkening. And in fact, I had one where I carved I painted the face, not the face, painted the hair, kind of like a redhead, orange color cowboy, and that orange seeped out into places I didn't want it to be overnight, and that cowboy he looks like he's an orange-faced rodeo clown. And so I've had some of those experiences with boiled linseed oil that I don't use it very often. In fact, when I want to antique a carving, you want to make it, what Chris calls horse poop, Chris Hammock. When you want to make it dark, and that's a personal choice you make, you use some kind of darkening agent. So burnt umber with linseed oil works for some people. I do it sometimes with boiled linseed oil, not boiled linseed oil, there I go again, with the refined linseed oil. I have refined linseed oil and umber in a jar that I use sparingly because it can be really strong. I keep getting over here into my color I don't want to get into. Take that off right there. Okay. Anyway, I'll use that burnt umber and the refined linseed oil because it gives me just enough antiquing to make it look a little old. And so I don't like a lot of it. I don't want my carving to look like it came out of the roaring 20s. I want it to be something that I made and I was just waiting for you to come buy it. Or I made it for a class and you're going to learn how to do that. Each one of us have different techniques.